Without Limits. Your breakthrough starts here. I'm your host, Davida Shinsky, and okay, let's start this over. Welcome to Live Without Limits. Your breakthrough starts here. I'm your host, Davida Shinsky, and this podcast is dedicated to helping you build your mindset, emotional strength, and clarity needed to create a powerful and purposeful life. Today's episode is titled Self Trust, the Foundation of Confidence, Clarity, and Inner Power. If you strip away everything, advice, opinions, strategies, and outside voices, what are you left with? You're left with you. That's you. And that's where everything begins. Self-trust is one of the most important yet overlooked foundations of personal success, emotional well-being. It's the ability to rely on your own judgment, listen to your own inner voice, and believe that you can navigate life even when things are uncertain. But here's the truth. Many people don't actually trust themselves. They second guess decisions. They seek constant validation. They hesitate, overthink, and doubt their instincts. And over time, that lack of self-trust creates anxiety, confusion, and hesitation in every area of your life. In today's episode, we're going to explore what self-trust really means, why it breaks down, and how to rebuild it so that you can move through life with more confidence, clarity, and inner strength. So let's get started. What is self-trust? Self-trust is not arrogance. It's not about believing that you are always right. It's not about ignoring advice or refusing help. Self-trust is the quiet confidence that says, I can handle this. And what it does is it gives you more control over who you are. So it gives you to say, I can handle this, even when you don't have all the answers, even when you're uncertain, even when things are unfamiliar. And its core self-trust is the relationship you have with yourself. It's built on one question. Do you believe I will show up for myself when it matters most? People with strong self-trust make decisions more easily, recover from mistakes faster, rely less on external validation, feel more grounded under pressure, trust their inner instincts. People with low self-trust overthink everything, seek constant reassurance, fear making the wrong choice, struggle with indecisions, doubt their intuition. Self-trust shapes every area of your life, from relationships to career decisions to personal growth. Without it, even simple decisions can feel overwhelming. With it, even difficult decisions feel manageable. Now, we're talking about self-trust. So, when you trust yourself, and it is learned, this is why one of the things that I always say is that as a child matures, you have to allow them to begin to make decisions for themselves, because that's how they learn to trust that inner voice. And when you learn to trust your inner voice, then you're more willing to understand just how important decision making becomes. As a very young child, we need to learn and we need to begin to believe in ourselves. One of the reasons that parents allow their children, even at young age, is to take on more responsibility, is to begin to teach them how to trust themselves, to believe that they are who they were meant to be. The problem is that we live in an age where parents don't want to let go of their children, and they don't allow them to begin to take on more and more responsibility. This is why a child at 16, a teenager, it's important for them to go out and get some type of job, because as they get some money coming in, they learn responsibility for paying bills, for buying things for themselves. We have to allow our children to grow, to begin to understand exactly who they are, exactly how they make their decisions. And self-trust is something that is built over time. And as it grows, then you begin to gain better control over your life. So how self-trust breaks down. Self-trust doesn't disappear overnight. It erodes slowly over time, often through experiences like repeated criticism, being ignored or dismissed, making mistakes, and harshly judging yourself. This is why when we talk about when you make mistakes, take it as a learning experience, because making mistakes is just a part of life. Growing up without emotional validation, relying too heavily on others' opinions, experiencing failure without reflection or learning. Each experience sends a stable message. And your judgment isn't reliable. And over time, that message becomes internalized. One of the biggest contributions is self-abandonment. This happens when you ignore your own needs, your instincts, or boundaries in order to please others or avoid discomfort. Every time you ignore your intuition, you weaken trust in yourself. Every time you override your inner voice, you teach yourself that your instincts can't be trusted. But here's the important truth. Self-trust can always be rebuilt, no matter how long it's been weakened. And this is where we need to recognize and begin to take better control over our lives. How we build that self-trust, how we see ourselves, how we look at our lives compared to how other people see us. So let's take a little look at how to build self-trust. And look at a goal, for one thing. And one of the things they say is you don't look at the end result, you break it down to smaller activities. And the purpose of breaking it down into smaller activities is so that you feel success along the way. Well, guess what that success does? That builds more and more trust in your decision making. It builds trust in helping you understand where your instincts can help you overcome something. You know, when you often when someone is out in a thunderstorm and they experience a traumatic experience, something like a tree falling down, or they've had a tree during a storm fall on the building, how many times have you heard of a storm where it flooded out? Even just this past summer, we heard of that terrible, terrible flood that happened in Texas, and all those people died. Well, that what happens there is anyone who's been in that experience later in life, they will continue to have that fear. And then what happens is if a young child is with that parent and they see that fear in that parent because of that parent's experience, what happens? They develop that same fear. So that's a secondary fear. When you understand exactly how your fears happen or why they happen, then it helps you understand, if it's a secondary fear, how to overcome it. So recognizing that. But the thing is that what that's doing is showing you just how trusting in yourself to base it on your own personal experiences as opposed to experiences someone else had, because they have a real fear based on a real experience that they had early on. We all experience traumas in our lives, and that trauma leaves a lasting experience. I can tell you this much. I grew up in a home that was very, very negative. I always had a mother that was constantly telling me what I couldn't do. Never gave me a word of encouragement, never told me or tried to help me to believe in my own abilities. It was always what I couldn't do. Why was that? Because that's all she knew, because that was what she experienced in her home. Because my grandmother was someone who came out of a time when women were literally put down or made to feel like they were worth next to nothing, or out of her own jealousy of what someone else happened, she would go and whisper in each of her other children's ears so that what she was doing was creating a pocket where one child was pitted against the other. And if you understand how that happens and where it comes from and how that erodes your self-trust, then you learn how to change things so that you can begin to understand where it comes from and why it happens and how you can change it. And it all also depends on that behavior pattern. What is your strength? Because if you have a strength where it's compliant and you're going to go along with what other people say, then you're going to erode your own self-trust in your own abilities. And I've seen it up close because I have a sister that's just deaf, had so much more potential and opportunity than I did. But because my mother was constantly criticizing and telling her what she couldn't do, that she got to a point now where she's just literally given up and does nothing. Now, let's talk about the cost of low self-trust. When self-trust is low, life becomes heavier. You second guess decisions. You hesitate when opportunities arise. You struggle to take action without approval. You feel disconnected from your own direction. Low self-esteem often leads to, and this is very important, overthinking, anxiety, indecision, people pleasing, fear of failure, missed opportunities. You may start looking outward for answers to questions that only you can be answering inward. But the truth is, no amount of external validation can replace internal trust. Even when others reassure you, doubt returns. Why is that? Because the issue isn't information, it's confidence in yourself. When self-trust is weak, even correct decisions feel uncertain. When self-trust is strong, even uncertain decisions feel manageable. Okay, this is kind of what I was talking about a little bit earlier, in that when you are constantly being criticized, what happens? You give up. You stop trying. I can remember at a time when my sister tried to cook. The problem is that because she doesn't hear or she doesn't understand that you need to watch the time when you cook, what would she do? She would literally not know how to do something. And instead of my mother showing her what to do, how to learn to cook, how to do things in a way that were beneficial, she constantly criticized. And what did that do? That because she was constantly being criticized for things that she could not control, what happened? She literally stopped trying. And now she's a 76-year-old woman going on 77 and needs someone with her all the time. Why? Because she needs someone to tell her to get up. She needs someone to tell her to take a bath. She needs someone to tell her it's time to do laundry. It's time to wash your clothes. When you lose that trust in yourself, what you're doing is allowing other people to take control over your life. And when you do that, then when they're gone, you're lost. You have no idea how to take care of yourself. This is why understanding and believing in yourself, and I can remember this much. My mother was constantly telling me what I couldn't do. And because I had more of an outgoing personality, and because I would talk to people and say, this is what's going on, and get their support, I looked at that negativity as a red flag to prove them wrong. So it's how your inner child, your inner protection, your personality affects how you relate to the things that people are telling you, because you can allow yourself to buy into what they're saying, that you're helpless. And being helpless is not what we want to see happen to you, because then you don't know how to relate to the outside world. You don't know how to interact. You don't know how to go out and have a relationship with someone else, because when you lack self-trust, then you fear being around other people because you just don't know what to do. That's why it's so important that a parent allow their child, as they get older, to begin to take on a little more and more responsibility over time. What self-trust really looks like. Self-trust is not about making mistakes. It's about how you respond when you do. People with strong self-trust own their decisions, learn from outcomes instead of fearing them, don't collapse after setbacks, adjust instead of abandon themselves, stay connected to your inner guidance. Self-trust sounds like, I made the best decision I could with what I knew at the time. I'll figure it out as I go. I trust myself to handle what happens next. It doesn't eliminate uncertainty. It changes your relationship with uncertainty. Instead of fear, there is curiosity. Instead of panic, there is pressure. Instead of doubt, there is willingness. Self-trust doesn't require certainty. It requires commitment to yourself. Now, think about it this way. How do you learn to drive a car? First, you'll go in a parking lot and learn. Then you'll get in traffic and the thing is, if you have self-doubt, if you have certain fears, if someone starts to move their car and you're the passenger, all of a sudden you react with the fear because you haven't learned to judge, to see things, to do things in a way that can help you build and learn and grow. We need to understand exactly how we relate to the world around us. And when we understand how we relate to the world around us and what our purpose is, and I can remember many, many, many years ago, I would question, why me? Why me? And I came up with the decision. There is a purpose for why I am going through what I did. And then when I entered college, I studied psychology and mental health because I wanted to understand how the mind works, how we process things, how we relate to what's going on around us. And I can tell you this much, that because of the experiences I had, it helped me deal with things far better than I ever knew how to deal with them, just because I allowed myself to trust how I was doing things. And I can honestly say that the experiences we have as a child influence how we relate to the world around us. Also, our personality and how we relate to the world around us and how we interact with people. And I grew up in an era when society did not recognize its disability community and people did not understand what disabilities were, and because of that, I was ostracized. And it was hard for me because having the personality that I have, being so outgoing, that it hurt not to be able to have someone that would want to be my friend. And I had very few friends or people who related to me on that level. And I can tell you this much, that 50 years after, when our high school had their 50-year reunion, and all of a sudden they all found me on Facebook, and it was like, why would I travel home to Savannah to a reunion when these people were not truly my friend. We all knew each other because we knew each other from grade school through high school until we all left for college. They never kept in touch with me afterwards, and I had no interest in caring about seeing them again or having to pay for a hotel for two or 3 days just to go to a reunion. And it was always the same people that went to the reunion. Because out of a class, I think of seven, I'm not, maybe 100 or 150 came to the reunion on a consistent basis. And now they're all passing away. And it is so funny that the ones that passed away, they were the ones that were so into keeping the class or everyone that had been in that class up on what was happening, on what was going on, because this was how they interacted, their personality. So understanding that, and it's that what that did to me is that I had to learn to trust myself on my own. And I did that through the few friends I had, but also by the things that I did in my life that were my achievements. And starting a business at a time when there were few opportunities for people with disabilities, and you didn't see people with disabilities in the workplace, that creating my own opportunity to build and do what I do, and understanding, going back and looking at where my strengths are, what were the things that I truly enjoy doing, and how to build a business around that. So how to rebuild self-trust. The good news is self-trust is trainable. You rebuild it through consistent action. Start keeping small promises to yourself. Self-trust is built through evidence. Wake up when you say you will. Follow through on commitments. Do what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it. Every small promise kept strengthens trust. Stop abandoning your own needs. Pay attention to your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it. If you need rest, take it seriously. If a boundary matters, honor it. Self-trust grows when you stop betraying yourself to please others. Make decisions faster. Indecision weakens trust. Start practicing quicker decision making, not reckless decisions, but committed ones. Then observe and adjust. Reflect without self-judgment. When things don't go as planned, avoid harsh self-criticism. Instead ask, what did I learn? What would I do differently? What worked well? This builds growth instead of shame. Separate intuition from fear. Fear is loud and anxious. Intuition is calm and steady. Learning to recognize the difference helps you trust your inner signals again. Build evidence through action. Confidence doesn't come before action. It comes after repetition. The more you act and survive outcomes, the more your brain learns, I can handle this. Self-trust and success. Self-trust is the foundation of leadership, creativity, and success. Every major decision in life requires it. Entrepreneurs, leaders, and creators often succeed not because they have the answers, but because they trust themselves to begin. Self-trust allows you to take risks, start before you feel ready, learn through experience, stay consistent under pressure. Without self-trust, you wait, you hesitate, you look for permission. With self-trust, you move. Even when things are uncertain, even when outcomes are unclear, self-trust turns potential into action, and action creates results. The highest form of self-trust, the deepest level of self-trust is emotional. It's the belief that I can handle whatever I feel. You stop fearing discomfort. You stop avoiding emotions. You stop running from challenges. Instead, you learn to sit with what arises and move through it. This creates emotional stability. You become less reactive, more grounded, more present, more resilient in every area of your life. As we close today's episode of Live Without Limits, remember this: self-trust is not something you are born with. It's something you build, one decision at a time, one promise at a time, one experience at a time. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need perfect certainty. You just need enough trust in yourself to take the next step and then the next. Over time, something powerful happens. Doubt fades, clarity increases, confidence grows, and you begin to realize that you are more capable than you ever gave yourself credit for. Thank you for joining me in today's episode. And self-trust, the foundation of confidence, clarity, and inner power. So until next time, keep moving forward, keep believing in yourself, and keep living without limits. This is your host signing off. Stay grounded, stay confident, and trust yourself one step at a time.